Hello everyone, I'm Han from UCL. Today I'm going to talk about robust perceptual learning of noise-vocoded speech under divided attention. So we know that humans can improve their perception of speech over time, and as some existing studies already showed that listeners did not show adaptation when their attention was exhausted by performing another task. But because this was a selective attention paradigm, we would not know if and how adaptation is subject to the availability of attention. So we hypothesize that if learning was equally robust under different amount of attention resources, then learning is not critically dependent on attention. Whereas if learning gets worse as attention is more restricted, then perhaps perception learning is dependent on the supply of attention resources. So to test these hypotheses, we got 192 people on Prolific, and one group, and divided them into four groups. So one group heard a bunch of noise-vocoded speech and repeated them back. So noise vocoding essentially removes some spectral information, thus the speech will sound like someone whispers very harshly. All other groups performed a dual task where they heard a sentence and while seeing a Gerber patch flashing very briefly. In addition to the recording, they also decided if a patch was 45 degrees or not by pressing the left or right arrow key. So the difficulty was manipulated by changing the angles of the patches that were not target. So in the harder condition, the deviance between the target and non-target was very small, whereas in the easier condition, the non-target had a very different orientation from the target, which is 45 degrees. So we used generalized additive mixed effect models to look at the data. We first found an effect of task difficulty in the visual task, where participants' performance gets worse as the task is more difficult. And we also found critically the significant improvement over trials in the speech task in all conditions. So, but in the hardest condition, we found like there was a steeper improvement between the first and eighth trial, but there was a slower adaptation between the 15th and 30th trials compared to other conditions. So our results showed that the perception learning is resilient to divided attention, and the hardest condition, the performance cost from the dual task was compensated by more adaptation in early trials. We'd like to interpret the absence of learning in the previous studies due to the task irrelevance, because in their paradigm, the group that did not show learning actually only passively listened to the speech without the task. So in summary, our results suggest that full attention is not necessary for adaptation to degraded speech.